Welcome back, Star Wars fans, to another deep dive into the most unsettling aspects of the Star Wars universe. Today we're examining one of the darkest characters introduced in Andor, Dr. Gorst. We'll be exploring his horrifying torture methods, specifically his brutal treatment of Bix Kalleen, and the long-lasting damage inflicted on Salman Pack. The Andor series pulls no punches in exposing the Empire's true cruelty, taking us beyond what we've seen in previous Star Wars films and shows. In this video, we'll analyze how Andor presents a more intimate and visceral look at the Empire's methods, emphasizing psychological torment over sheer destruction. We'll be discussing how the lighting and music in these scenes contribute to the tension and the historical inspiration behind Dr. Gorst, with chilling parallels to Nazi Dr. Josef Mengele, otherwise known as the Angel of Death. This is going to be a comprehensive breakdown filled with analysis, observations, and connections to the broader Star Wars universe, so stick around. And usually this is where I take a 20-second break to ask you to subscribe, but I'm not doing that today, so YouTube's algorithm's just going to have to suffer. So let's get right into this Star Wars breakdown. For decades, the Empire was framed as the ultimate evil in the Star Wars universe. We saw their tyrannical rule over countless planets, their oppression of alien species, and, of course, their ability to obliterate entire worlds, like Alderaan. But that destruction was always portrayed as large-scale, almost abstract, not so personal. In Andor, however, we see a shift, a close-up view of the Empire's brutality on a deeply personal level. Think back to the moment when Leia watches in horror as her home planet is annihilated by the Death Star. It was shocking, yes, but we were removed from the actual human cost. In Andor, that emotional detachment is erased. The torture of Bix Kalleen is raw, intimate, and visceral. We feel the weight of her suffering, the terror in her eyes. This is not just a statement of power like Alderaan's destruction. This is the Empire's methodical destruction of individual lives, one person at a time. And it's not just Bix either. The same brutality is inflicted on Salman Pack, a beloved community member on Ferrix. Salman's fate, although less explicitly shown, is just as horrifying. After enduring torture at the hands of the Empire, he is left as a broken man, his spirit crushed. He's a stark contrast of the Salman we first met, a man who resisted the Empire's reach and provided crucial assistance to Bix and the rebellion. Then, the ultimate moment, the Imperial officer says, "I want to hang him." Brutal. This is a new kind of horror for Star Wars fans, one that transcends space battles and super weapons. It's a portrait of a government so evil, so systematically oppressive, that it doesn't just kill its enemies, it destroys their souls. Let's talk about the man behind the torture, Dr. Gorst. His calm demeanor and matter-of-fact descriptions of his torturous methods are a masterstroke of character design in Andor. Unlike many other villains in the Star Wars universe, Dr. Gorst doesn't revel in power or authority. He doesn't have the chilling charisma of Palpatine or the terrifying force of nature that Darth Vader represents. Instead, he's a man of science, someone who uses his intellect to inflict unspeakable pain. It's impossible to watch Dr. Gorst without thinking of Josef Mengele, the infamous Nazi doctor. Mengele, like Gorst, was known for his inhumane medical experiments, often performed with cold detachment. The comparison is unsettling but intentional. The idea that the Empire would employ individuals like Gorst, who see their victims as nothing more than test subjects, paints the Empire in a new light. It's not just an evil empire led by an evil emperor. It's a bureaucratic machine where cruelty is institutionalized and normalized. Dr. Gorst's invention, the sound-based torture device, takes this scientific cruelty to a new level. The way he describes it, as if it's a groundbreaking discovery, is disturbing in its own right. He doesn't see it as a method of causing pain, but rather as a success, something to be proud of. The screams of the Dizonite children, weaponized into an instrument of torture, are a testament to how far the Empire will go to suppress rebellion and dissent. The historical parallels to Mengele are clear. Mengele took pleasure in developing new methods of experimentation with no regard for the lives he destroyed. Gorst's invention, too, is not just about extracting information. It's about pushing the boundaries of how far a person can be broken without touching them. That's where Andor succeeds so brilliantly in showing the Empire's cruelty. It's not about brute force. It's about control, about dehumanizing their enemies to the point where they cease to exist as people. Bix Colleen's experience at the hands of Dr. Gorst is one of the most harrowing depictions of torture we've seen in Star Wars. With Princess Leia, the door shut as Darth Vader went in to torture her, and we never saw anything else. Bix's journey from resistance fighter to broken victim highlights the Empire's true power, not just its ability to destroy planets, but its ability to destroy minds. What makes Bix's torture so unsettling is its focus on psychological pain. Instead of traditional methods of interrogation, Dr. Gorst's technique uses sound, a weapon that bypasses the body and attacks the mind directly. The cries of the Dizonite children are described as psychologically unbearable, and we see this firsthand in Bix's reaction. Her contorted face, her involuntary physical responses, the way she recoils in fear. It all paints a picture of just how effective and terrifying this method is. We didn't need to hear it to feel her pain. And Andor makes the brilliant decision to never actually let us hear the sound. We only experience it through Bix's reaction. This is a classic psychological horror technique, leaving the true terror up to the viewer's imagination. And it works. We feel Bix's pain not because we hear it, but because we see it through her eyes, her body, and her desperate attempts to hold on to her sanity. What's even more disturbing is the long-lasting impact this torture has on her. Unlike the classic interrogation scenes of the Star Wars media, like when Leia resists the probe droid in A New Hope, Bix isn't able to simply shake off her torture. By the end of her scenes in Andor, she's a broken woman. Her resistance, her will to fight is shattered. The portrayal of psychological damage is something new in Star Wars. It's a deeper exploration of how the Empire doesn't just inflict pain, but leaves lasting trauma on those who dare to resist. Bix is not a hero who can shrug off the torture and carry on the fight. She's a victim, irrevocably changed by the Empire's cruelty. This evolution of how Star Wars handles torture is essential to understanding the stakes of Andor. The Rebel Alliance isn't just up against a tyrannical regime. They're facing an enemy that can crush them on a personal, individual level, leaving lasting scars both physically and mentally. And Bix's journey throughout the series shows us that not everyone can come out of these experiences unscathed. Bix's portrayal adds a new dimension to the narrative of rebellion in Star Wars. We can see that not all rebels are equipped to withstand the horrors of torture, like Han Solo. Some, like Cassian Andor, have learned to compartmentalize their trauma, but others, like Bix, are consumed by it. This makes her a tragic figure, a representation of the countless lives destroyed by the Empire's relentless pursuit of control. Now let's turn our focus to Salman Pack just for a second, whose story in Andor is equally haunting but often understated. Salman is one of the first victims of Dr. Gorst's torturous methods that we see in this series, though his actual torture happens off screen. When we encounter him after he gets his interrogation, it's clear that something fundamentally has been broken inside him, and allowing Bix Colleen to see what's happened to him is just more unsettling. Now let's talk about the visual elements that make the torture scenes in Andor so effective, starting with the lighting. Lighting plays a crucial role in setting the tone for these moments, emphasizing the sterile and clinical nature of the Empire's torture methods while also looking dirty and dark. When Bix is strapped into the chair for her interrogation, the room is bathed in harsh, dark light. This lighting choice strips away any warmth, any humanity. There's no soft shadow, no place for Bix to hide. This is all darkness. She's exposed, vulnerable, and completely at the mercy of her captors. The cold clinical atmosphere mirrors the emotional detachment of Dr. Gorst himself, who approaches the torture with the dispassion of a scientist observing an experiment. The contrast between the dark interrogation room and the dim, oppressive streets of Ferrix, where Salman Pack roams, creates a visual dichotomy between control and chaos. In the Empire's chambers, everything is controlled, sanitized, and precise. But in the streets of Ferrix post-torture, everything is muddled in shadows. Additionally, the framing of the shots during Bix's torture places her in the center of the screen, emphasizing her isolation. There's an almost voyeuristic quality to the way the camera lingers on her as she struggles against the invisible force of the sound torture. The camera doesn't cut away, it forces us to witness her suffering, which heightens the feeling of helplessness. This focus on isolation and exposure reinforces the Empire's power in these moments. The victims are alone, stripped of any agency, and completely vulnerable. The lighting and framing create an atmosphere of dread that makes these torture scenes some of the most psychologically impactful moments in Star Wars history. Nicholas Britell's score for Andor is another key component of the atmosphere during these torture scenes. The music doesn't follow the traditional heroic themes we often associate with Star Wars. Instead, it is dissonant, minimalistic, and eerie, underscoring the tension and dread that permeate the series. In Bix's torture scene, there is no grand swelling orchestra. Instead, the music is sparse, creating an uncomfortable stillness that mirrors the cold, methodical nature of Dr. Gorst's interrogation. The absence of music in certain moments is just as impactful as its presence, heightening the sense of isolation and hopelessness. When the score does appear, it often features low, droning notes that create a sense of unease. These tones feel oppressive, pressing down on the viewer in the same way the torture presses down on Bix Colleen. The use of dissonant chords further adds to this tension, making the viewer feel unsettled and on the edge. During Salman Pack's scenes post-torture, the music shifts again. Here, Britell uses haunting, melancholic melodies that reflect Salman's broken mental state. These sounds are slow and heavy, almost funeral in nature, mirroring the death of his spirit. The music in these scenes emphasizes the psychological aftermath of torture, contrasting with the cold precision of the Empire's methods. In Andor, music is not just a backdrop, it's an integral part of the storytelling, and one could even say it's one of the characters in the story. It amplifies the emotional weight of these moments, turning already disturbing scenes into something truly haunting. Britell's score is a departure from the usual Star Wars soundscape, but it fits perfectly with the darker, more mature tone of the series. When we talk about the evil of the Empire, the first thing that often comes to mind is Death Star and the ultimate symbol of the Empire's ability to destroy entire planets. But Andor shows us that the Empire's cruelty extends far beyond superweapons. The psychological torture of Bix Colleen, the destruction of Salman Pack's mind, and the systematic oppression of Ferrix all illustrate a more insidious form of evil. The Death Star may represent the Empire's capacity for mass destruction, but Dr. Gorst and his methods represent the Empire's capacity for individual destruction. It's a quieter form of evil, but no less devastating. The Empire doesn't need to fire a planet-destroying laser to maintain control. It just needs to instill fear, to break the spirits of those who resist. This is what makes the Empire such a terrifying force in the galaxy. They don't just conquer, they crush, they oppress, and they destroy the very will to fight back. The psychological warfare they wage is just as effective as any superweapon, and Andor highlights this in a way that other Star Wars media hasn't. Through Dr. Gorst, we see the bureaucratic, methodical nature of the Empire's evil, not just about ruling through fear, it's about total domination, and about stripping away the humanity of anyone who stands in their way. And that, in so many ways, is more terrifying than any planet-killing weapon that we are disassociated with. Andor has redefined how we understand the Empire's evil in Star Wars. Dr. Gorst, Bix Kaleen's torture, and the psychological destruction of Salman Pack offer a different, deeper, more intimate look at the lengths the Empire will go to maintain control. It's not just about brute force, it's about breaking people from the inside out. Through the use of psychological torture, weaponized sound, and a detached scientific approach, the Empire's cruelty is laid here in Andor. The series forces us to confront the true cost of rebellion and the devastating impact the Empire has on individual lives. In the end, Andor challenges our understanding of what it means to resist tyranny. It shows us that the fight against the Empire isn't just fought with blasters, starfighters, and lightsabers. It's fought in the minds of those who dare to stand up to oppression. And for some, like Bix Kaleen and Salman Pack, that fight comes with unimaginable costs. But thank you for watching this Star Wars Andor series breakdown. I really appreciate you making this far. Down in the comments, let me know what you think about this torture method. Was it effective, or did it just make rebellion stronger? I'd like to hear from you. Until the next time, this is Gerald, a Star Wars fanatic, signing off, wishing you all great health, happiness, and peace. Until the next time, may the Force be with you.